انتوا بتسمعونا على STR The Sandy Times Radio. ثقافة، ميوزك وأكثر.
Running looks like the most democratic sport on earth. Shoes on, door open, go suffer. But in real life, especially in the UAE, it's a minefield of beginner mistakes. Heat stress, gadget obsession, and hype-driven gear choices that your body simply isn't ready for. In this episode of the podcast series Community Working Out, we talk about what actually builds progress and what quietly breaks it, and why easy running is not wasted time, how to avoid becoming a prisoner of metrics, and why community can matter more than motivation. And I'm your host, Sophia Brandwein, founder of the Sandy Times. I'm a cyclist. That's important to say out loud because everything I'm about to tell you comes from that perspective. I've only been running for 3 or 4 months, and the more I run, the more convinced I am of something that sounds almost heretical. Running is more demanding and more complicated than cycling, even though, on paper, it's the simplest sport in the world. You need a decent pair of shoes, and you can run anywhere. No bike, no logistics. You don't need €15,000 equipment, and you don't need endless gear upgrades. Just you, your body, and the ground under your feet. That simplicity is exactly what makes running dangerous. I didn't come to running because I suddenly fell in love with it. Hell no, I still hate it. I came to it because I travel a lot. Short business trips, constant movement, and taking a bike everywhere simply doesn't make sense. Running is accessible. It fits into any city, any schedule, any hotel room routine. It's also incredibly effective. It lowers resting heart rate, improves aerobic pace, challenges coordination, bone density, and stabilizing muscles that cycling barely touches. From a psychological point of view, running is brutally honest feedback. And from a community point of view, it's refreshing. The running community in Dubai is enormous and honestly less intimidating than cycling. You don't need an expensive machine to belong. You don't need to know the language of watts and carbon layups. You just show up. That accessibility matters, especially in a city where many people are searching not just for fitness, but for structure, grounding, and connection. But here is the trap. Because running looks simple, people treat it as simple. Stand up, run harder, run longer, repeat. And that's where things go wrong. There is a reason running has one of the highest injury rates among endurance sports. Multiple studies show that between 40 and 60% of recreational runners get injured every year, most often due to sudden volume increases, poor surface adaptation, lack of recovery. Your cardiovascular system adapts faster than your connective tissue. Your lungs and your heart say yes long before your tendons and joints are ready. I learned that the hard way. Last December I was in Berlin, cold, beautiful, uneven city. Slippery paving stones everywhere. I was running 10-12 kilometers 5 days in a row. It felt fine, too fine. And then my right knee completely betrayed me. Or maybe I betrayed it. Probably the second one. That was the moment I realized how much respect proper runners deserve, especially those who do it for years. Ultra runners, marathoners, trail runners, people who don't just run but build a sustainable relationship with the sport. Because running isn't about motivation. It's about restraint, about understanding load, about knowing when not to push, about building patience in a culture obsessed with progress screenshots. Today's episode is about exactly that. How to run properly, how not to break yourself while chasing simplicity, how to use running as a tool for your health, mental clarity, community, without turning it into another source of pressure. If you are a beginner, if you are a cyclist who thinks running is easy cardio, if you've been running for a while but feel like something always goes wrong, this episode is for you. Let's learn how to make running not just something you do, but something that stays with you. Chapter 1. The simple sport that saves people. Running is often sold as the easiest sport in the world. A pair of shoes, a door, a sidewalk, and you're an athlete. No subscriptions, no reservations, no logistics, and that simplicity is exactly where running becomes a lifeline when life is messy. From physiological standpoint, this minimalism matters more than we admit. Research in behavioral psychology consistently shows that the fewer steps required to start an action, the higher the chance of consistency. This is called activation energy, the mental and physical effort required to begin a task. Running has one of the lowest activation thresholds among endurance sports. You don't need to prepare equipment, plan routes with water stops, or carve out hours. You just go. When your life feels chaotic, travel, work pressure, and emotional overload, the nervous system craves predictability. Running provides that structure. Same shoes, same streets, same effort. The body recognizes repetition as safety, and safety is what allows adaptation to happen, both physically and mentally. Neuroscience supports this. Repetitive aerobic movement stabilizes cortisol rhythms and increases baseline dopamine sensitivity over time, not the sharp spikes associated with pleasure, but the slow, stabilizing kind, associated with motivation and emotional regulation. This is why running often works even when motivation doesn't. You don't need to love it, you just need to show up. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Many people who run consistently don't actually enjoy the act itself. Me, for example. They enjoy what it gives them after. Mental clarity, emotional steadiness, a sense of control. Running becomes a tool, not a passion. And that honesty is refreshing in a culture obsessed with romanticizing discipline. This is where running quietly saves people. Not with inspiration, but with structure. Not with joy, but with reliability. And no one articulates this better than Evren Oscar, known as the man who ran across the 7 Emirates, holder of 4 world records, founder and CEO of the Everybody's Nutrition and Mallet Footwear.
Well, a few years ago, I used to do things that I did enjoy all of the time. And things that you enjoy don't necessarily lead to good outcomes. So I used to eat a lot, drink a lot, smoke a lot, and watch TV a lot. And yeah, ultimately that didn't lead to good outcomes. I wasn't working on myself at all. Physically, mentally, I wasn't in a really good place. So although I do a lot of running, it's not necessarily something that I enjoy, but I like the results at the end. Once I'm done, once I've finished the run, I feel really good. It sets me up for the day.
What Evren describes aligns closely with what behavioral scientists call delayed reinforcement. When an activity is sustained not by immediate pleasure, but by predictable long-term reward. Running doesn't seduce you, it stabilizes you. And that distinction matters, especially in a world addicted to instant gratification.
So this is not just true for doing these records, it's true for my everyday life as well. Every morning, wake up early, try to get the running, and then it's just a great way to start my day. So yeah, I don't enjoy the running itself, but afterwards, what it gives me is mental clarity, it gives me motivation, it gives me everything to start my day off properly.
Mental clarity isn't abstract. Studies using fMRI scans show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex after aerobic exercise, the area responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. This is why runners often describe their days as easier after a morning run, even when nothing else has changed. But simplicity goes beyond chemistry. It's also logistical.
I think that running is very simple. I've done a lot of cycling before, I've done a lot of swimming before, and there's just a lot of messing around. Because I could travel quite a bit as well, it's like, okay, obviously you can't take your bike everywhere, you don't always have access to a pool or the ocean. And so I think running is very simple.
In moments of personal confusion, which most people politely call transition periods, clarity often comes from constraint. Running gives you exactly that. A start line, a finish line, a single task.
And that's a big reason why I got into running at that period in my life, because 4.5 years ago, I was in a period where I was very confused in my life, that there was a lot of things happening. I was in quite a bad spot. But with running, it was very simple and I knew exactly what was expected.
Psychologists describe this as cognitive narrowing, when reducing choices lowers anxiety and improves adherence. Running removes decision fatigue. You don't negotiate with it, you don't optimize it, you just do it.
When I signed up for my first race, I knew that, okay, here's the start line, however many miles that way, there's a finish line, all I have to do is get there. So it provided a lot of structure and it was very, very simple, and it's minimal equipment as well. So I think that's why I kind of, gravitated towards it. And just because it's hard. And the harder something is, the better you feel when it's done.
The last sentence is almost clinical in its accuracy. Effort-based reward, not outcome-based reward, is one of the strongest predictors of long-term habit formation. Running doesn't promise happiness. It offers something more reliable, agency. And for people whose lives feel unpredictable, that's often enough to keep showing up. Chapter 2. Easy versus hard. The mistake that burns beginners. One of the cruelest traps in running is that it rewards you immediately and then quietly punishes you later. When someone starts running, progress feels explosive. Race improves week to week, distances stretch almost effortlessly, heart rate drops faster than expected, and the brain draws a dangerous conclusion. This is working because I'm pushing hard. So the instinct is simple: run faster, more often, every time. From a physiological perspective, this is where beginners misunderstand adaptation. The cardiovascular system adapts quickly. Muscles adapt relatively fast, but tendons, ligaments, cartilage, and connective tissue lag behind by months, not weeks. Multiple longitudinal studies in sports medicine show that most running injuries occur not because of intensity itself, but because intensity is applied too frequently without sufficient easy volume. In other words, your engine improves faster than your chassis. Running hard feels productive because it's loud. Easy running feels useless because it's quiet. But endurance doesn't grow in loud moments. It grows in accumulated, repeatable, recoverable stress. This is where the now famous 80-20 concept comes in. Not as a rule, not as a dogma, but as damage control. And Blair Rodden, Adidas running coach and the founder and head coach of Broad Run Endurance Coaching, explain it in the most honest way possible.
One of the things that most runners seem to misunderstand at the start is the difference between running easy and running hard. So if you try to run hard all the time, you'll just end up being burnt out, you'll end up not getting good quality training. Yes, you will see really sharp improvements from the get-go, likely because you've not trained before and you've not done too much running. So you will see improvements really quickly. However, those improvements will fade away and you'll eventually be left feeling burnt out and also disillusioned by the sport.
This is the phase where many runners quit, not because running isn't for them, but because they unknowingly turn it into a constant stress test. When every run becomes a performance, the body never exists fight-or-flight mode. Cortisol stays elevated, recovery becomes incomplete, motivation drops. What felt empowering starts to feel heavy. The irony is brutal. Beginners burn out not because they lack discipline, but because they have too much of it applied in the wrong place.
So what I will always say to people is try and be smart, start slow, give your body plenty of time to rest and recover between sessions, and try and mix your training between about 80% easy and 20% hard. So only on around 20% of your runs should you be going hard.
Easy running isn't slow for the sake of being slow. It's slow so that it can be repeated. It's slow so tomorrow it's possible. It's slow so that progress compounds instead of collapses. Scientifically, easy aerobic running increases mitochondrial density, capillary development, and fat oxidation efficiency, the foundation of endurance. None of these adaptations require suffering. They require time. But here is the part people hate hearing. Easy has to feel easy, not controlled hard, not comfortably uncomfortable. Easy enough that your ego feels not utilized enough. This is where running becomes psychological. Quality doesn't mean intensity. Quality means appropriate stress. When runners ignore this, they don't just risk injury, they risk disillusionment. The sport stops giving back, and once that happens, consistency disappears. That's why most experienced runners don't look impressive on most days. They look calm, controlled, almost boring. And that boredom is what keeps them running for years. Easy days protect hard days. Easy days protect joints. Easy days protect motivation. Easy days protect the future version of you who still wants to run. Running doesn't punish laziness, it punishes impatience. And learning the difference between easy and hard is often the moment when running stops being a phase and becomes something sustainable. Chapter 3. The training week that actually works. At some point, every runner asks the same question. What does a real training week actually look like? Not the Instagram version, not the elite fantasy, but something that works week after week without breaking your body or your motivation? The answer is deeply unsexy. A functional training week is built on three things: consistency, controlled intensity, and strength work. That's it. No hacks, no magic sessions, no heroic suffering, just repetition done intelligently. From a physiological standpoint, adaptation is driven by progressive loading, small incremental increases in stress that the body can absorb and recover from. When volume or intensity spikes too fast, connective tissue becomes the limiting factor. This is why runners often feel fit right before they get injured. My story. Their aerobic system is ahead of their structural resilience. A good training week doesn't chase peaks. It protects continuity. And when people talk about running 6 or 7 days a week, it often sounds extreme, until you understand how those days are distributed. Matthew John May, qualified ultra-running coach who has participated in ultra races around the world, describes this reality very clearly.
So typically when I'm training for an ultra marathon, I would be running 6 to 7 days a week. But some people think that's a lot of running, but honestly, more than 50% of those, maybe 4 days, are very light, very easy, sort of recovery runs. The other runs, besides that, intervals, long runs, steady state runs.
What sounds like a heavy workload is actually a careful balance. Easy days aren't filler. They are what allow hard days to exist at all. Easy running increases blood flow, supports mitochondrial development, and accelerates recovery without adding significant mechanical stress.
So this is the way I keep my body moving, keeping that volume up while I'm training for these very long distances. How I structure that is, I work a 9 to 5, so either I go in the morning or the evening. Preferably the morning is best for me because the weather is better in Dubai also.
This matters in a place like Dubai, where environmental stress adds another invisible layer to training load. Heat amplifies fatigue, poor timing turns manageable sessions into unnecessary stress. Structure isn't rigidity, it's respect for context. And then there is the part runners love to ignore: stress training.
With these runnings I have to train, you need to add in a few strength sessions there, so maybe I will do strength session after a run. And this builds the discipline, but you really do need to listen to your body.
Strength work is not about aesthetics or performance vanity. For runners, it's injury insurance. Studies consistently show that runners who include regular strength training reduce injury risk by up to 50%, particularly for knees, hips, and Achilles tendons. Strong muscles absorb load, weak ones pass it directly to joints.
I see what happens a lot is people get closer to the race, they end up pushing harder, and injuries come out of that. This is not the way you should be training. If you end up having an injury, you need to really back off, let it recover, and then push again. And that will give you the best chance when you hit race day of your best performance.
This is where ego often overrides logic. As race day approaches, anxiety rises. People chase reassurance through intensity, and that's exactly when the body is least prepared to absorb it. Backing off is not failure, it's strategy.
I've ran last year 6 ultra marathons up to 100 kilometers. So how I prepare for such challenges is pretty simple, but it's not easy. Consistency over time, progressive loading, strength training, learning how your body responds to fatigue.
Simple does not mean easy, it means repeatable. And repetition is what builds endurance. Not hero sessions, not perfect weeks, but hundreds of average days done well enough.
Incrementally small gains over a long period of time are the way to go. Mindset matters just as much as the training plan also. You have to know what you're going into. Mentally, you have to have some humility, some curiosity, push yourself, pull back, You don't conquer these distance, you sort of cooperate them.
This is where running stops being about control and becomes about dialogue, with fatigue, with limits, with recovery. And when people ignore this conversation, the outcome is predictable.
Honestly, one of the biggest mistakes I see people do when they've booked in a race, they don't follow a training plan, or they start training too late. And what happens is they increase the volume too fast, which ends up giving them an injury. It's not about gear, it's not about nutrition, it is about training too hard, too close to the race.
A good training week doesn't look impressive. It looks boring, it looks sustainable, and most importantly, it looks like something you can do again next week. That's how runners last. Chapter 4. Road versus trail. Same sport, different nervous system. There is a strange misconception in endurance sports that trail running is somehow just a more aesthetic version of road running. Better views, better Instagram photos, more dramatic sunrises. That's not what's actually happening, friends. From a neurological and psychological perspective, trail running activates a completely different nervous system response than running on the road. Urban road running is loaded with microstresses: traffic noise, constant visual scanning, pace control, crossings, uneven but repetitive impact, and the low-grade vigilance of sharing space with cars. Even if you enjoy city runs, your brain is operating in a semi-alert state the entire time. Cortisol stays slightly elevated, attention is fragmented, you are doing the run rather than inhibiting it. Nature-based endurance flips that switch. Multiple studies in environmental psychology and neuroscience show that exposure to natural environments reduces activity in the brain regions associated with rumination and stress regulation, particularly the subgenual prefrontal cortex. In simple terms, your mind stops looping. Your nervous system downshifts. Effort becomes less about output and more about presence. That's why people describe trail running as grounding rather than energizing. It doesn't hype you up, it settles you down. The terrain forces humility, pace becomes irrelevant. Long climbs erase ego quickly. You stop negotiating with numbers and start cooperating with the day. Trail running also removes comparison. There are no traffic lights to beat, no clean splits to show off, no illusion of control. You climb for hours, descend carefully, and accept fatigue as part of the landscape. Mentally, that's a completely different contract with effort. Matthew John May, qualified ultra-running coach who has participated in ultra races around the world, captures this contrast perfectly when he talks about why he chooses the mountains over the road.
Trail running versus road running, what is the main difference? Why am I always in the mountains? I think the main thing is you're in nature, you're outdoors, it's peaceful. You have calm. If you want to really de-stress, detox, it is the best place for it. You know, the opposite is running on the road next to cars in a city. It doesn't give you all the benefits that trail running can provide. Obviously, you have the running side, the endorphins, the relaxing effect of it. But trail running just gives it that extra. And that's why I love it.
What he's describing isn't preference, it's regulation. Trail running regulates the nervous system, road running often stimulates it. Neither is better, but they serve very different psychological needs. If you are already overstimulated, mentally scattered, emotionally tired, trail running doesn't just train your legs, it gives your brain somewhere to land. That's why so many endurance athletes eventually migrate to the mountains, not for distance, not for elevation, but for quiet. And once you experience that kind of mental humility, long climbs, long days, no shortcuts, it becomes very hard to unlearn. This is still the same sport, but it's a different state of mind. Chapter 5. Gear and fashion. Don't buy hype, buy function. Running is one of the rare sports where gear can genuinely help you, and just as easily hurt you. On the surface, running looks refreshingly minimal. No machines, no setups, no maintenance rituals, but because the barrier to entry is so low, brands and trends rush in to fill the silence. Shoes become statements, fashion becomes identity, and suddenly a sport built on simplicity starts to feel complicated again. There is nothing wrong with caring about how you look. In fact, motivation science consistently shows that aesthetic pleasure increases adherence to physical activity, especially at the beginning. Feeling good in your gear can make you move more. That part is real. The problem starts when fashion replaces function, and when beginners buy tools designed for bodies they don't yet have. Biomechanically, running shoes directly influence loading patterns on the foot, ankle, knee, and hip. Carbon plates, aggressive foams, and highly specialized geometries change how force is transferred through the body. For trained runners, this can improve efficiency. For beginners, it often accelerates injury. This is where adult decision-making comes in. Not what looks fast, but what lets me run tomorrow. Blair Rodden, Adidas running coach and the founder and head coach of Broad Run Endurance Coaching, puts it very clearly.
As a running coach, I will say the most important thing for people to have is a good pair of running shoes. You don't need any of the other fancy things that, big brands and big companies are trying to sell you. A good pair of comfortable running shoes will get you the furthest way. It doesn't matter what brand they are, it doesn't matter, what type of shoes they are. The main thing that matters for you is that they're comfortable and that you can wear them for all your different runs.
Comfort is not a boring choice, it's a strategic one. A shoe you can wear often is infinitely more valuable than a shoe you wear occasionally because it feels fast.
That is the minimum essential kit that you need. Often we overcomplicate it and put barriers in front of us that might stop you from making good strides in running. So what I will say is that's the first thing you need to get.
This idea of barriers is crucial. Research on habit formation shows that every additional requirement lowers consistency. When people believe they need more gear before they can really start, they delay progress or stop entirely. And then comes the temptation.
Yes, you might get 5 to 7% advantages by wearing the latest carbon shoes. However, if that absolutely kills your feet, that 5 to 7% will be completely negated if you're not able to wear them for the full race.
Carbon-plated shoes promise efficiency, but efficiency without durability is meaningless. If your feet, calves, or heels can't tolerate the altered mechanics, you are borrowing performance from the future and paying it back with interest.
So what I will say is go get yourself properly fitted at a shoe store. Yes, buying online is convenient, but if you go in and test the shoes, you know that they fit correctly. Also, don't be fooled into thinking that every single brand and every single different type of shoe from each brand is going to be the same size. I have maybe 15 pairs of running shoes and I estimate probably every single one is slightly different in size and shape.
Running doesn't reward loyalty to brands. It rewards honesty with your body. This is where fashion culture quietly creates problems, especially in cities where running has become part of lifestyle aesthetics. Vladimir Shublikin, Adidas CTC running manager and the founder of the Dubai Long Run Club, sees this from the inside.
Running fashion has become a big part of lifestyle culture, even for people who don't actually run. And I think that's amazing. There is honestly nothing more comfortable than good running shoes for everyday walking, right? And if stylish, beautiful gear motivates people to move more and get into sport, that's only a good thing, right? The only downside I see is when beginners start chasing hype, buying expensive carbon-plated racing shoes and using them for every single run. These shoes are made for a very specific purpose and for prepared runners, and using them all the time, especially at the beginning, often does more harm than good. So the biggest mistake I see is buying highly specialized, aggressive shoes before your body is ready for them. Thick foam, carbon plates, all of this can increase your injury risk and slow down the proper adaptation. Every shoe has its purpose. Understanding how and when to use your gear is far more important than following trends. In short, don't buy hype, buy function.
That sentence should be printed on every shoe box. Running fashion isn't bad. Running ignorance is. Gear should support your running, not replace it. And the most impressive thing in running isn't your shoes. It's that you are still healthy enough to run next week. Chapter 6. Gadgets and Data. When metrics start owning you. Running has a strange relationship with numbers. On one hand, it's one of the most intuitive sports imaginable. You feel tired, you slow down. You feel good, you keep going. On the other hand, modern running culture is obsessed with metrics. Pace, heart rate, cadence, sleep, recovery, VO2 max, readiness scores. Everything is measured. Everything is tracked. Data itself is not the problem. Data is neutral. In fact, data can be incredibly useful, when it's understood well. The problem begins when numbers replace perception. Beginners are especially vulnerable to this. When you don't yet trust your body, you outsource decision-making to your watch. The watch becomes the authority. You don't ask yourself how you feel, you ask the screen. And slowly, without noticing, training turns into constant self-evaluation. Sports psychology research shows that external feedback dominates internal awareness in early-stage athletes, often leading to anxiety, overcorrection, and reduced enjoyment. Instead of learning effort, beginners learn comparison. Instead of learning reason, they learn judgment. This is how people become prisoners of metrics. They don't train anymore, they perform for data. Vladimir Shiblykin, Adidas CTC running manager and the founder of the Dubai Long Run Club, speaks about this from experience, not theory.
Today, there are endless gadgets measuring everything: heart rate, sleep, recovery, pace, power, you name it. And honestly, I love that data. I really enjoy diving into numbers. But the problem is that most people don't know how to interpret this data properly. They become prisoners of metrics and end up comparing themselves to others instead of focusing on their own progress.
Comparison is the quiet killer of consistency. Two people can run the same pace with completely different internal loads. One is cruising, the other is close to braking. Numbers don't tell you that, unless you already know how to read them. That's why simplicity matters early on.
If you're just starting, I would keep it simple. Track your heart rate, learn how your body responds, and focus on improving compared to your past self, not anyone else. And this leads directly to my main advice. Learn to listen to your body, stop comparing yourself to others, and be patient, because running is a long-term game. It's like building a house. You can't put up walls without foundation. You need to build a strong base first, and only then start adding layers. And most importantly, don't forget to enjoy the process. At the end of the day, we do this for ourselves, for health, for balance, and for joy, of course.
Data should support that, not replace it. Your watch doesn't know your life stress. Your app doesn't know your sleep debt. Your metrics don't know your mental state. You do. And learning when to look at the numbers and when to ignore them is one of the most important skills a runner ever develops. Chapter 7: Community, Identity and the Long Game. At some point, every runner learns the same uncomfortable truth: motivation doesn't last. Discipline helps, but discipline alone is brittle. Life interrupts, work piles up, sleep disappears, weather changes, and if running exists only as a plan in your calendar, it's the first thing to go. What makes running stick is not willpower, it's belonging. Sociological studies on long-term physical activity show that people who associate exercise with identity and community are significantly more consistent than those who treat it as an isolated task. Even for introverts, especially for introverts, actually, because consistency often comes from being expected, not being excited. Running stops being something you do and starts being somewhere you go. Blair Rodden, Adidas running coach and the founder and head coach of Broad Run Endurance Coaching, explains this shift perfectly.
So like most people, I ended up starting out on my own. However, when the true love for running came was when I eventually joined a running training group, and I joined a sort of typical coaching performance group as opposed to a running community. I guess now things have evolved a little bit and runners have sort of found a sort of sanctuary, a place where they can feel like they're together with other runners, people who are chasing the same goals. And I do think that other runners who are starting will find the same sort of solace, the same sense of belonging that I have felt with a running community. Now, this doesn't have to be a running community like I run that is a paid performance group. This can be one that's just totally free. Go down there, meet the same people every week. Will bring consistency in your running. It'll also bring you together with people who are also pursuing goals in running, which will bring motivation, it will bring friendship, and it will bring all those other good things that running brings along. I think runners often confuse their sense of happiness and sense of satisfaction with achieving a PB. A PB often, yes, it does make you happy for the short time. However, that happiness can often be short-lived, and people sort of think that that is going to change their life or make them happier people. What I will say is focus on the process, and the process of training, the process of doing these races. I would say that when my own personal satisfaction has not always come from my fastest race, it's often come from, say, a race that has given me confidence and I've ran, and you almost get this feeling that perhaps you've heard it before, but something called a flow state, where you feel like you didn't think about the run during it, you just ran to feel and had a great time doing it.
Flow is where running stops being effort and starts being therapy. That's where everyone's experience takes this even further. Just reminding you that Evren Oscar is known as the man who ran across the 7 Emirates. He is holder of 4 world records, founder and CEO of the Everybody's Nutrition and Mallet Footwear.
Running looks like a solo sport, but really it's not. I mean, I'm just a person out there running, but behind that,
for me, running is not about racing. It's the foundation of my daily routine and my personal therapy, actually. There were moments in life when things were mentally very tough, and running really helped me stay balanced. So today, running is a huge part of my life. It gives me stability, confidence, and sense of grounding, especially in a world that feels very unstable and unpredictable.
Running is just something I do to become a better father, a better husband, and better in my businesses. That's all. It's a means to an end. And if I can inspire some people along the way, if we can raise some money for charity as well, that's great. That's a big part of what I do. But ultimately, it's for the mental side. It's to keep me mentally accountable. It's to keep me on track. And it's to keep me better in life.
That's why running sticks. When it stops being about performance and starts being about presence. You don't stay in the sport because of your pace. You stay because it gives you a place to return to. And that's the difference between a phase and a lifestyle. Running teaches you a lot about patience, about restraint, about listening instead of forcing. It looks simple from the outside, but it asks for awareness, humility, and time. And when you get it right, it gives back far more than pace or distance. It gives you structure, stability, a place to return to, even when everything else feels unstable. In the next episode of Community Working Out series, we zoom out even further and talk about health in a broader sense. Training load, recovery, nutrition, hydration, and what happens when discipline quietly starts to outpace care. Less about pushing, more about sustaining. Less about performance, more about longevity. This is Community Working Out, and I'm your host Sofia Brandbein, founder of the Sandy Times. And I'll see you in the next episode, or on the running track.